Hey, good afternoon, ladies and
Creepy
gentlemen.
smile. My creepy smile. Sorry, I was like,
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with starting the
that's
show
the
that way.
thumbnail. It's funny. I forgot in a production meeting. I put it in my like cold storage. But have you seen the video of Colt Cabana on the Whatnot auction where he's got the CM Punk shirt and he's like, "Come on, guys, what are we doing here?"
I have not.
So he's like, "Do you know what? Do you know?" Well, Whatnot is like it's like an auction app for like lots of stuff, but he's basically doing it for PWTorch or for PWTorch. That's us for
For pro
Pro
wrestling.
Wrestling Tees. So it's basically like, hey, here's a random shirt, and it's like 20 seconds, and people bid on it until the 20 seconds is up, basically. But I have that exact same shirt. I was going to start with the show with that, and I totally forgot. So just know
Well,
I have that shirt. It's in deep storage, but
shame on you. Shame on you for forgetting that gem of an idea. This is the PWTorch Fireside Chat for Thursday, October 6th, 2022. Tyler, we were never without things to talk about. Let's just put it that way. It has been a week of drama again in AEW. It's been a week of a pay-per-view build, a final hype to Extreme Rules on Saturday night, and everything in between. So I think we've got a ton to chat about. But we're going to preview Extreme Rules. So everybody that's with us now, Sean, Zach, and others, we'll definitely get to an Extreme Rules preview. But let's talk of the news of the week. On in a lot of ways, is AEW up to this point, I think, and I don't know that it's for the best reasons. For one, you've got this Sammy Guevara and Andrade incident, another fight backstage. That's 3 now in a matter of, I don't know how, what, a few months?
yeah, 6 weeks.
In 6 weeks?
Yeah, 2 months, somewhere in that range. Depends on when the Kingston and Guevara fight was, but yeah.
Right. And I think the news came out about that like later.
Yeah.
So that may be upside. But the bottom line is, it's not good. It's not good. It's not a good environment right now. And I don't necessarily think that the product is suffering because of that, but I think it's one of those things where you just might see the repercussions of this time in AEW like down the road. There's only it's only so long, I think, that you can kind of maintain, or you can lean on the good matches to take you. You can only take you so far, and I kind of feel like we're hitting that point right now where it's kind of like what kind of company does AEW want to be? Do they want to be a episodic, like a true episodic pro wrestling show on national television, legitimate company, or do they want to be kind of like a super indie? And I feel like they're kind of at that crossroads. And again, it's not because of the fight, but it's kind of what the fight and what the fights symbolize or are indicative of in terms of the leadership of that company and the direction from the top down. So I was just kind of disappointed. It's like get your stuff together. It's a pro wrestling company, but it's also a workplace, and you just don't have fights and and you just can't have that. And there you go. So I don't know where you're at on it, Tyler, but I'm not so bothered by the actual fight itself because it's Andrade, it's Sammy, whatever, the mid-card guys at best. But to me, it's indicative of a larger looming problem that keeps getting worse and worse instead of better and better.
Yeah, I did the post show with Wade last night. Also in the comments, I posted the ratings for last night for Dynamite. So I think that's going to. I was kind of fluctuating on how I would answer this last night based on this, and the rating the following week is kind of the rating you deserve from the previous outing. So I think we'll see that next week. The fight itself in a vacuum, not a big deal to me. It's a big deal that Sammy, I think, was in the main event and got the pin. I think that is the total wrong message from a managerial standpoint. And you can just put Jake Hager, Magic Daddy, whatever in that spot. And I don't think you lose really anything in that match. But I think Andrade is probably, we're not going to see him again, I would think, if you believe reports that he basically sought out Sammy. He seems a little bit more the aggressor in this individual situation, but they're both equally at offense for being children and shit posting on Twitter against each other, right? So all that is like, those are two guys I don't think there's value within AEW at this point. So it's not a huge issue there. It just shows a lack of management that has not been totally resolved since the All Out situation, which is a problem but not insurmountable. But I think last night, if anyone listens to the post show or goes back and listens to it, I was probably the most positive on the show itself, start to finish, and am kind of accepting of what AEW is now. I think it's been like that for a long time, really post-pandemic. It's been what this version is once all the WWE guys come in. So I know it's not really all the points you made there, but I think the show itself has been what it is, and I've liked it more since All Out than I did prior to All Out. But I think, and not to like toot my horn, your horn, whatever, but it's kind of our job, Zach, to be kind of the canaries in the coal mine for opinions changing and things like that. And I think you and I have felt similar on AEW, and people are now just kind of figuring out why AEW has felt off for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I think once you address that this is not the Elite's company, and that was a big topic and talking point last night of really anyone's done anything the first 2.5 years besides Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho in AEW basically didn't get any love last night for the 3-year anniversary. That's because it's Tony Khan's AEW, not Cody, not Kenny Omega, not the Young Bucks, not Hangman Page, not anybody else that was part of the initial onslaught that created AEW. So I guess that's kind of my synopsis of the 2-hour 15-minute post show last night. I want to make sure I got that here at the top. But all that being said is, I think the rating, and if it continues this way, dictates that there are hundreds of thousands of people that are interested and are diagnosing all the problems and are armchair promoting this company. But there are still a vast amount of people who watch it and enjoy the product, what it's been. When the ratings been better than when CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega were all there for a period of time. So not to say that it's the ideal situation right now, but once you accept this is AEW and this is Tony Khan's vision of AEW, there are things to tweak, but I don't think it's like catastrophic failure like it seemed to be the mindset in our little bubble last night. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, and I think that, but to me, it's like, it's kind of, I think you have, obviously you want to look at the viewership, right? I mean, that to me, that's key. That's like the ultimate at this point. You are selling tickets, but that's not necessarily an indicator these days of like, tickets used to be the primary source of revenue for pro wrestling promotions. And now they certainly are, but the TV deal, right? Like it's all about the TV deal. That's what AEW is setting itself up for. So these ratings are supremely important, but I'll enter into evidence too. In 1998, WCW and Nitro were doing, gangbuster ratings, but the content, the product wasn't strong. And I think it takes a little bit of time for that, for that kind of drop off in the ratings to hit. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen in this instance, but I think we have to watch both of those things. We need to watch the content of the product and how it affects the number. Right now, I don't think it is. And I think that's really like the interesting nuance. And you guys got into it a little bit last night in terms of it AEW week to week, and if you take it as like a standalone show, is, largely good. And pretty much all the time. Like when you talk matches, right? And you're looking at pro wrestling matches. It's rare that you get like a real stinker on AEW Dynamite. And more often than not, you're getting, 3 stars and above. Where I see a challenge is the fact that that's all it is. And I think, if you want to see good professional wrestling matches, right? There's so many different places you can go to get that. Like Fight TV every weekend is stocked with all sorts of different independent promotions that are going to have good matches for 3 hours, on a given day. And so I think what you want to do, I just, to me, you have to have some like underlying significant, important stories that are going to define your company. And I think they had it for a little while, and they had it in bits and pieces in certain areas. But right now, when I look at the show, I'm like, it's kind of just, it's happening. It's a show that's fun to watch, but there's, the investment, I don't know, is there from a story perspective. And so when these guys, if they stop having good matches, or the talent changes up again, or the star power of the scissor me thing, like, fades off, then what's left, and that would be my concern. And Zach, I'm not comparing the two. I want to make sure that that's not misconstrued. I'm not comparing the two times. I'm saying that the numbers situation, you can take it into account, and that lives in two different environments. I'm not comparing WCW to AEW. I'm just taking a look at, bad Nitro shows in 1998 were drawing lots of viewers, and so I'm entering that into evidence as a means to say you don't know what kind of effect the product is having necessarily on a week to week basis that you would looking back, 12 months from now, or 24 months from now. That's my point. So, I mean, I guess, Tyler, when I say that out loud, are you in the camp of like, no, man, like a good wrestling show is a good wrestling show, and that's it. And like, we got to stop trying to look for ways that AEW is going to grow this thing, and just be happy watching a good 2-hour wrestling show every Wednesday, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I have two minds about it on this subject. I would say the idealist in me pretty much agrees with what you're saying. Not more generally, because I think last night there was a combination of matches thrown together that were good but didn't make much sense, like the Cage and Wardlow match. It was out of nowhere, but it was a good match. But then there's lots of, I mean, the main event, the stuff with MJF and Yuta, the women's stuff, whether you like it or not, all those have been stories that have been told over the last couple of weeks that got to this point and made those feel like compelling beginning, middle, and end matches on a show. So structurally, I like the way it's set up, and the stuff in between, the Jay Lethal, the Darby Allin stuff. Like, I'm cool with a one-off match that is pretty good to set up other stuff down the line. The Jungle Boy stuff and Luchasaurus, that's a kind of a microwaving of a feud that we're going to get a bigger match next week. So all this stuff, most of the time, AEW, if it's a week, it'll tell a story for a match as opposed to doing, and it's not to compare AEW, WWE, but WWE redoes a lot of stuff, and that, in my mind, isn't a hall pass for, okay, these are great stories because they just keep having similar matches over and over again, right? That's its own flaw that it has, and there's no perfect way to book multiple hours of wrestling every week. But so that would the idealist in me would like there to be lots of changes to make AEW better, because I think we all agree that it can be. But like the realist in me knows that Tony Khan is pretty rigid in a lot of things in life, and his long-term story ideas for matches, for things that he cares about, for as Wade brought up last night, the stage looking the same song, the same, very occasionally changing the announce teams, all that sort of stuff. So I'm less inclined to believe that there's going to be big sweeping positive changes besides choosing the right or wrong person to go with. I think Tony Khan's been fairly good at that on TV, right? Not backstage, not handling all that stuff away. But, and I know you weren't making this comparison, but if you look at 98 WCW and where they turned, you have your Hogans, your Nashes, your Halls, all those guys running the whole show, and it being all about 40-year-old guys who are past their prime. And AEW post the gripe bomb is definitely leaning into. That's not mine, by the way.
Oh, okay. I had not heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I would claim that so hard. No, that's on Squared Circle. I saw that, but it's great. So the gripe bomb is what that's called. But they're pivoting to the Acclaim, to focusing on Wardlow, on Garcia, on Yuta, on MJF, all these guys that are AEW guys. Not all of it, but they're sprinkling throughout the show. It's not just the first hour of the Luchadors on WCW 98, 99, and then not having anybody on ready to go. So I know that's not the argument you're making, but that's like the thing to watch is like if they continue this route. I think it was a pivotal point after All Out, and I think so far, long term, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I think the company will be healthier for doing that than having the Punk show, the Punk Jericho, Danielson, Andrade, Malachi Black show of all these WWE guys, Miro show, and just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off and be like, hey, that whole last year was bad. And Adam Cole's our guy, so we're gonna, all that stuff. But so yeah, that's why I kind of started the show too, of like, I kind of am accepting and hoping for the best that this is kind of the way AEW is. And, does that grow to anything more than this? It could, but is that proportionally always going to be half of what WWE is doing? I think that if I had to bet, like, that's probably a top 80% result that AEW is going to be for the next 5-7 years.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I get, that's the thing. I guess it really depends on like how you want to analyze this, because to me, you've got such a talented roster, and if we're looking at like, grow, if you want to grow in your AEW and your Tony Khan, like, I look at that and I go, well, we're failing. Like, we're not failing in terms of like putting out a good wrestling show, but we're failing at growing that wrestling show, and we're failing at growing that fan base, and we're failing at increasing our viewership, and therefore decreasing the ability to get significant television deals down the road. So that's where I jump in, and I just wonder what Tony Khan wants this thing to be, because I think he has aspirations to make this just a massive thing, and it already is. And then, I mean, I don't want to understate that it already is a success from the perspective of you created this national successful wrestling promotion from the ground up, from nothing to what it is today. And that's a huge accomplishment, but but you want to keep going. I'm assuming, like, Tony Khan wants to keep bringing in talent, and he wants to make money on this. And, so what I'm saying is that these are things that I think, are going to, they're going to have this million, regardless of what they do for the most part. And so it's, or like, 800,000 to 1 million, but it's that other group that, like, I think that they could make some inroads in, if they just kind of just focus the product a little more and gave some people some investment. Like, that part to me is what's missing from the show. Like, I could watch a good wrestling match all day. I mean, it's pretty much all I watch, so, like, it's awesome. But, I think what gets people invested is good storytelling and big stars. And I don't think AEW has done a good job of, building an environment where that can exist successfully, I guess is what I'm saying. And again, that's independent from the good matches, because there's no question there's good matches. It's a good show. But I think the show needs a little bit of focus. Like Jon Moxley, for example, he's their world champion, and he was barely on the show last night. And it's like, you don't want to overdo it with them, but I think you want to look back at this time and be able to say, okay, this was Jon Moxley's time. This was his run. This was his big run. Like Cena's run, back when it was his time. And I don't know that you can say that right now, just because it's not focused on him. And that, I guess, maybe it's just a matter of personal preference. That's what I like in my wrestling. And I think traditionally that's what draws the most money. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see. It's a tough balancing act, because I can totally sympathize with Tony Khan too, in that, hey, you've got this product, you have all these guys who can put on good wrestling matches. There's 1 million people that are going to watch every week, and your top 3 in cable viewership and ratings on a regular basis. That's all like super strong. So he'd probably listen to the show and go, "What the hell are you guys talking about?" Like it, and that's the thing. It's hard to argue with that, but at the same time, it's like, what's the opportunity cost? Like, what could you be getting if you just position things a little bit different and take Ring of Honor off the air, for example?
Yeah, I mean, It's interesting. I don't know if we're like in a bubble here, and I feel like Zach is the only one that is kind of more on the side of what I'm about to say here. So Zach, get ready. But I don't, man, I just don't want to. I don't want to be like broad strokes here, but like I guess in my mind, and Wade kind of had this point last night of like, it doesn't matter what his, everyone else watching's personal preferences, like of what we prefer as a show. It's about like getting those people that aren't watching to watch. But like that is like that's like I decompartmentalize that a lot of the time. And wrestling is, about 1.5 million people are probably diehard wrestling fans in this country, or in the whoever these ratings are hitting, right? It's North America, maybe it's Canada, even part of that. I don't know. But then there's like, a couple 100,000 people that ebb and flow based on if their kids are 6 to 10 and they like wrestling and they take their kid there, they watch it. It's on the TV. They watch the news at 7 and then SmackDown rolls around and that's the extra amount of people there, right? So just in general, I'm a bit frustrated, not by you, not by anyone on here, but I'm a bit frustrated at like, there are things that can get better. But like, I guess what it just comes down to for me is like, and I'll ask you this, Zach, like of Raw, Dynamite, or Raw, NXT, Dynamite, and SmackDown, and Rampage, what show do you prefer to watch on a weekly basis? What's your number one pick if you can only watch one on a weekly basis?
For me, right now, I think it would be it would be either Raw or SmackDown, depending on where Roman Reigns is on that day. I think.
If it's not an off week, right?
Huh?
If he's not off that week, right?
Yeah, well, right. I mean, like
that's a cheeky joke by me. So
I know you're needling me on that one, but and look, yeah. So I'll just call it Raw. Raw, and I can defend that, like, without issue.
Yeah. And that's not me like to get you in a corner.
I know
because I'm obviously, my answer is Dynamite the way I'm setting up this question, right? So I think that's good that there's a balance there, but I think it's like we don't talk about Raw. If we did this show Tuesday, we'd probably do a lot of Raw talk, and maybe not even because there's not as much drama and it's an established brand. It's kind of always the same. It is what it is, right? There's not as much to critique broadly about that show that we feel like as fans. I think we have more input in this new thing, and that Tony Khan is a little bit more receptive to the collective than Triple H's, than Vince was, right? I think that's also a portion of it. But there's things on Raw that, I mean, it's hard. There's things I would change immediately, and I don't know how people sit there and watch it for 3 hours that are not people like you and I, right? But it does work. So I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from, is like, no matter what, all the flaws that I all agree with, there's too much Ring of Honor. It's watered down. None of that makes any sense. There's some direction that needs chosen on some certain things. There needs to be a lot less BS backstage, and there needs to be things handled. But like overall, I still would watch Dynamite, and then probably Raw is my 2, and then maybe even NXT. I think SmackDown's been pretty bad lately, if I'm being honest with you, minus the Roman Reigns stuff. But that's kind of how and then Rampage is last, because it's like, it's fun, but it's like worthless. There's no stakes. But that's kind of where I'm coming from with all of this, of like, there's things to, in my opinion, adjust in every show, but still, in my opinion, the best put on wrestling show week in and week out for me personally as a fan. So I'm frustrated by the like 98% that I'm getting on all our platforms here, of like, this company is and I don't work for them or anything, so I feel like a little bit of a homer saying all this, but it's like,
show us your pay stub. Show us your pay stub.
I mean, I wish I was Tony, hit me up on the DMs, but it's like the sky's falling, and it's literally not, right? So it's just, I feel like that's kind of the hierarchy with wrestling fans, kind of have that mindset, and it's a bit frustrating for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can see that. I mean, I don't have like an attachment to either company. Like, as far as like, I guess frustrating is a fine word to use, I think, but it's also not frustrating. It's just like, well, okay, you're going to do whatever you're going to do. You have the pocketbook and we don't, and we're sitting here, and our job is to analyze and critique. So I guess that takes away the frustration. Yeah. And I agree with Sean. You're not homering this up. But I think too, like I think it really comes down to the expectations of or what you want from AEW. You know, like I think, you know, um, there's Zack out there who is just loves AEW and doesn't mind, you know, that is, you know, that in my opinion, it's a show chock full of great matches, but not necessarily a cohesive or even an attempt at like a cohesive story with top talents. There's some of it hit or miss, but you know, on Raw, I feel that more. Like I feel that story more, and I feel like you can point to the top guys on your shows, and you can talk about the stories that they're in. And to me, like for me personally, that's I mean, it's not that I don't like good wrestling matches, but I like the investment that good stories create in said wrestling matches. And I feel like right now today, we're getting more of that on Raw and SmackDown than we are in AEW. Vince McMahon era, like it was there in hits and misses, but so you couldn't really defend it then. And I was like, all right, AEW top notch if you go back to March this past year. But I think they've lost some of that. Like I really think they've lost some of that since about March of this year. And you know, I hope they can find it. I hope they can find it. I hope they can get it back. Because to me, that's what I believe draws. I mean, that is what draws me in. But I also believe that's what's going to create new fans of your company as well.
Yeah. Can I get like a harebrained Tyler analogy in here of what I think this kind of boils down to?
Absolutely.
Probably need like imaging. We need that sponsored by somebody. Because you know, I do it all the time. But so if anyone's out there that knows someone that wants to sponsor segments on the show, let us know. But I will sell out as fast as possible. But this to me feels
too,
like
by the way.
This conversation feels like AEW is a beloved band that releases their third album and like things have gone off the rails and they've lost their identity and they're kind of doing the prog version of like whatever they were as a band, right? That's like when you have a cool band, the third album is when things really pivot one way or the other, right? And they go off the rails. And it's like, that is not the AEW that I, you know, was seeing in the Newport, you know, or, you know, what's a cool club in Chicago, right? Somewhere like that. And now people are like, you know, they're not what they used to be. They suck, like they've sold out, whatever, right? That's the whole vibe there. And then WWE is like the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, whatever. Name that. It's like they're coming through, they're selling out stadiums, no problem. They're up and down, they're Jimmy Buffett, they're the Grateful Dead, they're Beyonce, they're whatever, right? They're like everyone loves them. And they might have new songs that people like, even though they're kind of similar to what they were before. So that's just how I feel as a pop culture enthusiast, how this discussion is going. And that's fine. That's the natural way for things to go. And I'd rather there be, you know, I think it's still a positive sign that there's still a lot of discourse one way or the other about AEW. And I think that shows legs long term, that people care enough to watch us talk about it for a half hour every week about how we don't talk about anything, any matches, any nothing. We just complain about, and most of it rightfully so, complain about how it's run, how it's organized, blah, 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 blah. I think that shows good long-term legs. When WWE is just kind of like, hey, cool, they come to town, I go, I watch it, they're great. It is what it is. They're on Saturday Night Live, and I watch them for the couple songs that they play, or I'm going to watch them at the stadium in my local town. So that's kind of there.
Yeah, fair. I mean, fair enough. That's a good analogy. I mean, that is a good analogy. I mean, you can't argue with it. I mean, I think that is there, and I think that's and I think any company is going to have their ups and downs, the peaks and valleys. WWE obviously has, and those two companies are in two entirely different positions, right? I mean, they're not trying to do the same thing at this point. So, you know, I mean, look, it's all, you know, we'll see how it plays out. I took a lot of flack on social media, kind of like answering the Torch question of, you know, what grade would you give AEW thus far this year on just overall company, like business, numbers, stories, matches, etc. Like, just how do you grade all of that? And I wasn't favorable for a handful of different reasons.
So
I think
is that like a C? You would say A, B, C.
I
D,
gave it a D. I gave it a D. And the reason I gave it a D was like a lot of things. It was a lot of factors. Because I mean, on the surface, I'm like, look, you lose for whatever reason, suspension, fired, just not with the company right now. But like at a point of time this year, you lost CM Punk, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Cody. I mean, that's huge star power. That's out the door. So I start there, and I'm like, okay, well, you got to grade them down for that. And then you look at like pay-per-view numbers, and you look at ticket sales, and you look at just the storylines on TV, the integration of Ring of Honor, the lack of star power, or the lack of like not star power, but the lack of like a focused star, a top champion, and an unfocused product. And I'm generalizing all this. That's kind of where I landed. Last year I would have given it an A plus. So
yeah,
what would you give it? B?
I'd give it a C.
C. Okay.
That's kind of why I asked if you were if that was a C or a D category. But I think C is fair. I think I agree with all the same reasons you do. There's a couple other things. I mean, I think there's the big concern for me is the strategy, and I talked about this last night. The strategy of basically working the same 12 cities in perpetuity. Like that's why last night looked so bad, I think, because you're just working the same region over and over again. I said last night, I live in Ohio. It's been great for me. They've been to Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus like 7 times in the last 6 months. So I've been able to go to AEW a lot live and in person. That's great for me, but that's not good for literally 65% of the population of this country that have not even had AEW come into their city, let alone, I mean, I understand that the Canadian thing, right? It's been hard to get in there until now. I think they should really try and go over to the UK at some point too and make a big extravagant thing there as well, because there's a hotbed for talented fans, I'll say, as some of them are watching right now. But so that strategy there, that's all more into the C, and the stuff with the mismanagement of your company that can ebb and flow. Maybe some stuff with Cody can be like, hey, we went into business together, we realized we're not good for each other. Long term, that could be a good decision for both parties, but in the moment it sucks.
Yeah, good point.
But we'll see, like a year from now, 2 years from now, if we're having the exact same conversation, then I'm going to say like an F, right, for Tony Khan and his management style, and his management style not being able to, if he can't do it, put the right people around him, right? So that's still yet to be determined, but I think we all lean at least a certain direction on where we think that is with Tony Khan. And well, yeah, I won't get into the next thing I was going to say, but yeah, so
it's said. I mean, that's
I'd be a C. I'd be a bit like it's a C. It'd be more of a C- than a regular C too. So like you're not off, and even I think Zach I saw had a B, and I think that's the highest score that we saw. So definitely no A's. I think there's no way to say an A on anything, even though you could argue the pay-per-view buys were strong because an added additional pay-per-view buy or pay-per-view this year, and it sold pretty strongly, as Meltzer reported. The pay-per-view companies want them to run 12 a year because the Bleacher Report, it's basically booing a whole position of their company. Is doing these AEW things. So there's strong models there, and the TV deal is going to be huge. I don't know if you saw the F1 deal that kind of is doing similar numbers to AEW. If they do that, I mean, it's like 5xing their TV revenue in the next deal.
Wow, I didn't see what F1 got. What did they get?
Yeah, it's when you talk next, I'll go through it again. But ESPN did it, so it's obviously a little different. ESPN is more live, that live sport. So if you get a percentage of that, just like they're healthy financially if they get that deal and don't blow it from here. But
they need that deal.
Yeah, there's different ways to like look at it, right? If you look straight as a bottom line, like, would you invest in this if this is a stock? Probably. If you're a fan of this, right? If it's like, hey, I like Disney, but I think all the Marvel shows suck, would you not buy Disney stock then? Like, no. But there's like different levels to it, right? So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. Well said.
And Hazan is right on this comment. So
yes, he is. So last night, though, specifically, we kind of talked broadly AEW. I think it's a good time to have that discussion because it's 3-year anniversary. They're 3 years in. And it's a good debate to have. I mean, I think there is people on all sides of it, and we'll see where things go. But last night in particular, I thought I thoroughly enjoyed MJF versus Wheeler Yuta. I thought that was just a hell of a match. I thought that they both worked great together, and MJF reminded everybody that he's not just a character. I mean, he can go out there and he can have really good wrestling matches, and also I say this every time MJF has a strong match like that, but like smart wrestling matches that perfectly line up with his character and help put over the babyface, even in losing. And I thought they accomplished that yesterday with MJF and Wheeler Yuta. I love the spot where MJF thinks he kind of rolls out of the way while Yuta's on the top rope perched and kind of flips from the bird, and then Wheeler hits that spot anyway. I thought the match was really, really good. I was a little confused by the kind of the weird face turn-ish tease for MJF. I didn't finish the post show, so I don't know if you guys got into it. But what did you guys? Well, what do you think of the match first of all? And did you think that that was leaning towards an actual babyface turn, or is this another MJF Alexa Bliss style ruse?
Yeah, we did talk about it, but the match itself first. I'm a big fan of MJF style, so I think Yuta is a good foe to him in that conquest. But he blends the 80s style that a lot of people desire, the early 90s sort of NWA, WCW style, but also mixes in some high spots that keep it engaging and make the final third of the match exciting. So him wrestling like that and wrestling infrequently is just a great strategy for a top act. I think if I was somebody that became a top act all of a sudden, I would basically mirror what MJF did. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are 10 years old right now when they become stars that are going to be MJF. So I think that is, something you can't really debate at this point. But the little like shaking his hand and then saying, "Hey, I didn't work with you." Everything MJF has done since he's come back, and even before that, is he teases like he's your friend and then stabs you in the back to be an even bigger heel. So anything he does, I view in that context. And I think it is a little bit of MJF being too cute on lots of stuff. And it's just another example of that. That's his instinct, is to make it seem like the firm, he didn't want them to do that. And to think that, hey, maybe he is Yuta's friend. But it's all in a way to, if it does happen, his mindset is to stab Yuta in the back after he gains his trust and then become an even bigger heel. But shouldn't be doing any of that right now. Should just be, he's finally kind of past some of that stuff, and is after you hit Tony Schiavone, you got to keep going down that path of being just an absolute 100% heel and go there. So, I didn't love it, but I think it'll be course corrected because I think it will get not lampooned, but when you have a good match, and that's like the second thing that people talk about, it's not just us, it's everyone. That's a negative, I would say.
I agree. Yeah, I really don't want to see MJF, hedging on the character, because I don't think he hits in either instance. Like, if you're gonna go babyface, go babyface. There's an appetite for that, I think. Okay, yeah. But if you're not, like, don't tease it. People should know how to feel about you, and I think that was one of MJF's biggest strengths for the longest time, was that he was just a universally hated guy, and so I think that this is kind of like a needless red herring that we're getting on the road to Moxley and MJF at Full Gear. That's my prediction. So the other thing I liked on the show was the acclaimed National Scissor Me Day. I thought that was really entertaining. I really did. I thought that Anthony Bowens in particular, like, kind of jumped off the page and really seemed to like own that moment. And Caster's always good, so I was less surprised to see him kind of like take over and look as good as he did. But Bowens stood out in a big way. I don't know what the staying power of this is, and I will just continue to put that out there. But you got to strike while the iron's hot, for no question about it. And I think get big ups to Tony Khan for doing that, recognizing a little bit of a momentum here and feeding that. I think that there's many times that Tony Khan hasn't done that to certain acts, FTR being one of them. And it's been to the detriment of the show. In this instance, I think it was a great call by him, and it works. And I, is this going to be, Rusev Day, or is it going to be, the New Day stuff? I don't know. We'll see. I think the former, but for one night only, it was good. And they set up, they're building towards the third match between Swerve and Our Glory and the Acclaimed. And I think that should be a big time match by the time they build it. So I'm not in on the Scissor Me stuff, but last night I thought was hard to argue with how entertaining it was.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Obviously, I liked it. I've been more pro them than you have, but so I enjoyed that. One thing I liked about this is that I agree with you on not the surprise, but I've always, I guess, slided a little bit more towards Anthony Bowens than I have Max Caster as like who I would pick to be the single star. But what last night showed me is that I think both of them are going to be maybe not world champions, but like I think both of them can be pretty high level single stars when that breaks up, and they can just go their separate ways and like come together again. You don't need like a screw job. One turns heel. I mean, you could. That's very classic wrestling. Sure. But typically in a tag team, you're looking at who is dead in the water and who's going to be the star. And I don't feel that way with these two. I feel like both of them. And if I'm Tony Khan, that is awesome, first of all. And but I've always thought the Bucks should have tried some stuff on their own too, and obviously that was never going to happen. So there's my biases there, and I think tag teams need to kind of go out on their own from time to time, just like Dax. I think could be a bigger single star, obviously, than Cash is, right? So that's kind of if you look at every tag, you can kind of do that. But the third thing, Swerve looked like a big star in that situation too. I thought coming out there, crowd cheering for him, but then getting that heel heat almost immediately, like he's. I just think like when he does his match with, Billy Gunn next week is probably the second most anticipated match I have, just to see what the continuation of the story is. And I want to see Swerve in that spot. And does he turn? I'm intrigued by what he's going to do because Billy Gunn screwed him over, right? So is he in the right as a babyface? That story's interesting and has a little bit more layers than usual within AEW. So I like all that. But yeah, I mean, the Sterling stuff sucked. I think we can all agree on that. And that was like, it's almost, I forgot about it mentally, but
blocked it out.
Yeah. But I liked it a lot. And I think there's a lot of upside for all three of those guys. I mean, Swerve's obviously kind of already a singles guy, but if I'm Tony Khan, I hope that Swerve is not one of those guys who wants to go back to WWE really bad, because I think he's super valuable. Really, of all those like mid-tier WWE guys, I think Swerve, and it has been, I've always been kind of a Swerve guy. So again, take that into account. But I think he's got almost the most upside of everyone in that group. So, but yeah, I liked it a lot. And I have some F1 info before I forget if you want that on the video. So F1 basically gets like 950,000 people on average for the rating. It's Sunday morning, so it's a little different than Wednesday night in prime time. But they got a 3-year extension. They get $90 million a year over 3 years. So what's that? $270 million. So that's more, so I think TV rates are only going up. So we're 2 years away from AEW getting something. So if they maintain and get a certain rating, I mean, they basically going to use that as like the baseline for any sort of TV deal wherever they go, I would presume. So that's would buoy that company for a while, just like the TV deals have buoyed WWE. And so, I think that's good for the industry. So whether you like AEW currently or not, I think you should cheer for that to maintain competition, because WWE is a lot better because of AEW, and maybe not vice versa, but AEW is around because of WWE too. So,
not yet, but you never know what will happen.
Yeah.
But no, for sure. I mean, you definitely want them to hit on this deal and look, the regardless, like I said, the ratings don't necessarily tell the story in real time about the success of a product. But in this case, you're building your case.
Sorry, I said to pop that up.
I almost did. I almost did. Good stuff, Steven. But look, Tony Khan's building this case for TV deal, and so I don't think he really cares what. I mean, he cares, but he can't afford to care what is going on with the AEW ratings a year from now, right? He needs them to be good today, and so for that, I think he's happy with these numbers for sure. So. And I agree. I want to just comment on the Swerve. I thought he was excellent too. I thought he really was good. I thought he just he didn't feel like he had any interest in going out there and being like the cool heel. Like he wanted to get the heat and he wanted to put the shine on the baby faces, and I think that's what he did. And I thought it came across really good. He's got some staying power, I think, in AEW as a top heel someday if they want him to be.
Yeah. See him main eventing a pay-per-view against like anybody as a heel, right?
So, yeah. Oh, for sure. I think he's somebody that you could heat up even right now for a television title defense for Jon Moxley. I think you could definitely do that. I mean, he's tied up, but I think that he's got the potential to do that. All right, let's jump into Zach's thing here, and then we will get to Extreme Rules. But Zach says we got to talk about Soraya getting physical yesterday in at the end of the women's six-woman tag team match. It was interesting to see her do that. Brit Baker versus Soraya is a money match at this point, I think, for sure. So if Soraya steps foot in the ring, I think that's who she has to wrestle. At the same time, I just think she's a little. I don't know how to say this, but if she can wrestle, that's great. Obviously, good for her, and I hope she's safe. And I'm assuming multiple doctors cleared her. So this is kind of health aside. I would make a bigger deal about like her getting physical, like, and I don't know that they did. They talked about it, but they talked about it in a way that, to me, you couldn't tell whether she was able to wrestle. Is she not? Like they were kind of like fanning the seeds of doubt as she's getting physical. And if she's cleared, I would be going with that. I would just be going with that, and I would tell, as Sean says here, I would tell that story, and just that story. So I would leave like the hedging out. That's the only part of the segment that I didn't like, and I didn't think was effective, because now you don't know. Should I get excited about this match? Should I not? Should I get excited about Soraya being able to get back in the ring? Should I not? I don't know. And then the commentary team is really doubling down on that doubt and fanning it. So that was my issue with it, but I hope she can. I really hope she can. I think, like I said, Brit Baker and Soraya, that's money.
Yeah, I think this has all been a prime example of AEW assuming everyone knows as much about wrestling as Tony Khan knows about wrestling. Mm-hmm. And if you're a general viewer, I just would love to know the percentage of people that, maybe knew her as Paige 5 years ago, and she comes in here and then there's like, oh, she can't wrestle. Is that, so she's a man, all that stuff. And like, when she came out there at Grand Slam, I would say a majority of people watching it on television did not know instantly, like, oh, can she wrestle or not wrestle? Or that they heard the news that she can't wrestle, so now it's kind of lame, right? It's just like, tell the story of what it is. Don't have the thing with Britt saying she can't wrestle and then having Excalibur be like, oh, I don't know about that. And then have her get physical and have it all be it like it works for you and I, right? In a vacuum, we see what they're doing. And that's that. If Tony Khan, that works for him too, right? But like for the general audience, it's just confusing and it waters down the star potential of Soraya by doing all of this. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a prime example of like the bad part of AEW. I know I kind of rallied the other side about, hey, it's not so bad, but like I agree there are issues like this happening consistently, and you just need to step back a little bit and think like, hey, like I said last time on the show, like I just asked John Moxley to run through basically everything because his instincts are always like perfect on basically everything. To like if someone has ever watched wrestling, John Moxley can convince them of X, Y, and Z, I think. So
yes.
if you ask John Moxley, hey, this is the thing we're going to do, he'd be like, no, that sucks. That's bullshit. Just have her come out, say she's here to change things. And then the week after you have her hit Brit, and then people will know if they are in the know, they know she can wrestle. And if they're not, then it's just a person who's coming in and hitting somebody. Like,
right.
Simple as that. So that's how I feel. But
totally agree. I totally agree, man. And the thing is, like, to Zach's point here, or just to address that angle was a clear sign that she could wrestle. Okay, maybe. You wouldn't know it, though, by how the commentary team talked about it. It's a guess. Maybe she did get cleared, but we don't know that. And I think the value of her return is in the story. It's not in the is she cleared or is she not. It's no, she's cleared and she's going to wrestle Brit Baker. Boom. That's the value. I think they can get it back. They haven't forever lost it, but they didn't hit on it that last night. I think they muddied the water. But I that's a hell of a match. I think if they can pull that off.
Mm-hmm. Also, I hope they didn't get the fired NFL neurologist to clear her. Yes, that's a recycled joke from last night. So if anyone double listened to that, sorry about that. But I
mean, let's freaking hope not. Yeah. Let's hope not. All right. If anybody has got any more AW questions or comments, drop them in the chat. We will look at those. You guys are having just a great discussion in there. Love it. So yeah, keep that going. And if you have questions, let us know. But let's pivot, Tyler, to Extreme Rules. That is on Saturday night. We will be doing a live Torchcast watch along right here. Myself and some special guests. I can't reveal who those guests are quite yet at this time, but we will soon.
Not me. I'll be in Nashville,
Tyler,
so I'll be hammered singing country music while you guys are doing that. So
you live it. That's the high life right there, man.
Yeah.
Maybe send a pic or two, or maybe join in from the bar and sing a song or two.
We'll see. I'll pay a band to play the Stone Cold theme song, and I'll live cast that too.
Fan freaking tastic, of course. But yeah, we'll be watching live Extreme Rules. So have us on your second screen. Have it be us here at the Torch. Would appreciate it. We've had a blast the last 3 times we've done this. So really looking forward to that. So hopefully you guys all will join us. But Extreme Rules is coming up. I think it's turned into a pretty nice card for the most part, top to bottom. And so it doesn't have that major men's world championship defense in Roman Reigns, but it has a major men's match in Riddle against Seth Rollins in the fight pit with Daniel Cormier as a special guest referee. I think this thing's turned out pretty darn good. I think, they've went chapter by chapter through this feud. They've had a couple matches. I think they've told a good story here, and they are at the point where it's Extreme Rules season, and now they're doing a fight pit match. So I really liked what they've done here. I think Riddle is going to get this win and kind of put a bow on the feud. DC's there. I don't know that. I mean, unless we see some kind of weird celebrity heel turn thing, I kind of just think it's going to be a send the fans on happy from this storyline, and DC raises the hand at Riddle, and that's it. But I give this pretty high marks as far as how this feud has gone, and I think it's been good for both guys.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's obviously the match of the show should be the main event, and if you could put a world title in here, and that's kind of what WWE would feel like a couple of years ago, right? That this would be the secondary title feud. Yes. And I don't think it's really hurt I think it's helped honestly by not having kind of that secondary title, secondary world title behind it. It just is more of a feud that has made sense between these two guys. And, I think this year, if anybody, it's been the year of Matt Riddle. And, with his basically going from lame Scooter and, Randy Orton in January, like he was essentially a punchline as a character, to, transitioning through the end of, McMahon getting behind him and then Triple H sticking with him, it would appear. There's been a lot of things there. And I think, as I am a Rollins guy, I think Rollins has been the MVP of most of WWE this year, of getting Cody over in the brief period of time for people that did not know him, and now essentially getting Riddle over as a top tier guy is an invaluable trait that Rollins has. And, having the thing with Lashley in the middle that reestablished Lashley in his role. So, both guys, I know that's more big picture than the match itself, but the match, I think Riddle's got to win. And Cormier is a Seth Rollins fan. I think that's been out there on multiple places. So I think they'll play into that. But Cormier is a MMA guy, and like he's going to call it straight down the middle as the ref. And I could see a finish here that looks similar to a submission or a stoppage of an MMA fight where Cormier busts in like the ref does when someone's getting absolutely pummeled on the mat, getting hammer fisted, and then the ref pushes the guy out of the way and calls the match. I think we could get a finish like that in the waning moments. I think that'd be pretty cool. Visual, and I think Triple H would also be someone that likes to have that visual, have that sequence in perpetuity. So I think this would be really good. Should be a really hot main event, and could be some shenanigans, but the fight pit thing doesn't lean into that. So both these guys will go well, and I'm curious to see how it goes. So,
is anybody going to bleed in this match, Tyler?
I'm trying to think. Is Riddle? Did he ever do that in like an NXT match?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, there could be
not on purpose.
Yeah. I don't think Seth. I mean, he could hard way. He's a tough guy, right? He's a pro wrestler who's worked through a lot. But Riddle could easily hard way somebody pretty easily. I think it's up to Seth if he wants to. I don't think anyone's going to blade. I don't think anyone's going to, cut and then Vaseline it to get it cut open later. I think if it's anything, it's like a bloody lip, or the teeth are bloody because they took a hit, or a broken.
So no blade job.
I don't think so. But we'll see. I could be wrong, but. I think if you want to be as real of a fight as possible, you need to have it be a close to a hard way bleeding as possible to keep the integrity of the match. And I think everyone involved cares about that, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I agree. I think we'll see, maybe a hard way thing, but I don't think they're gonna blade in this. I don't think they really need to, and I don't think that's that's just not WWE's MO at this point. Okay, we also have the other contender for a main event slot, if you're not going to go with the fight pit, is Bayley versus Bianca Belair, a ladder match for the Raw Women's Championship. I'm not as high on this match as I am the fight pit. I think that it's the first ever women's championship ladder match. Singles ladder match, and that matters. That's important. And I think the match itself, once it gets in the ring, like we could be talking about a match of the night candidate, I think. But as far as the story goes, I don't know about you, man, and I'm curious as to your take on it, but I just have not felt the chemistry between Bayley and Bianca. Like, for whatever reason, it just has not clicked for me, and I don't know if that's Bayley being a little stale, or if it's Bianca not really knowing how to work back with Bayley on that. Like, I think she was so in tune with what like Becky Lynch was doing. And I think Bianca knew how to like fold in to that character. But I just haven't gotten that same type of cohesiveness between Bayley and Bianca. So I think the words that they're saying are okay and they make sense, but from a feeling perspective, I wish this had a little more juice than it does right now. To Sean's point, I think the contract signing helped a little bit, but I also think at the same time it was a sample of the lack of chemistry that I was talking about. So I think this match could easily steal the show. Both women are like supremely talented when it comes to in ring, and they're creative. And this is the first ever, and that's always big if you're a performer. But from a story and a kind of character perspective, and then just those two together, I think the notion of putting them together was a lot stronger than it's actually turned out to be from a story perspective. But well, where are you on that?
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with everything you're saying. I think the match itself should be really good. The betting odds are the tightest of all the matches. I just looked them up. With I don't know. Bianca's a slight favorite, I would say, but it's pretty close. Most of the other matches, you kind of know the way they're going based on that. But yeah, I think the match is good. But yeah, the chemistry's not there, and I think there's lots of problems from the way all this is taking place. The main one, in my opinion, is that Bayley was gone for too long. She's too important to come back just as a heel and kind of push that immediately. And I think long term, now, does she fit? Is that too many baby faces, too many heels? That's a little bit of a WWE problem that is not on the level of an AEW problem, right? But like hey, we need 2 main event faces and 2 main event heels to kind of have all these 4 big shows and get where we need to be. I think that is an inherent problem with WWE because I think that feels at issue here. Not that Bayley and Bianca should be friends, but I think there's that is missing because it's a continuation of that Bayley character essentially from when she got injured. And I think there's times to pivot on characters when they're injured and come back for a long period of time. Also, more so with Bayley than with Bianca, but their cohorts to me have been more interesting, maybe for positive or negative reasons than they have been. So like when you're the alpha and you're not the most interesting thing of what's going on around you, that doesn't help to push that match forward. And that's a storyline thing they've been doing. That's the intrigue of, is Alexa going to be sort of Bray Wyatt situation again? But Dakota Kai and Io Sky are big premieres, and they've been some of the most interesting stuff week in and week out on the show, and have overshadowed Bayley, in my opinion. And I'm kind of waiting for what they do when they leave her behind, etc. So should be a good match. Ladder match is always fun. Should be an athletic performance. And then as always, Bianca's just like Hangman Page is. They're better chasing the title than being champions. I think they have been booked in a similar fashion.
And I think you pull the trigger. Man, it's so tough because I think Bayley's pretty cold, and I think you'd want her, if the plan was to have her come back and do this match and put the title on her, I don't know that I don't think she's hot enough as an act right now to do that, even if that is the plan. And so for that reason, I think on the surface, if you were just to show me on paper how this is going, I'd say, well, all right, it's time to put the belt on Bayley and have her feud with someone else on Raw. I don't know who that would be, but B, I just don't quite think it's there for her at the moment. So I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna say that they do pull the trigger on Bayley, and that they try to use that as a means to kind of like inject a little bit of life into that gimmick, and maybe it'd work. Maybe it would work. I don't know, but I would. That's my prediction. I'll take Bayley in this one.
Yeah, I would lean Bayley as well. It kind of gets into the problem, like I said, of your heels and your faces on Raw specifically, right? But what is like the WrestleMania plan then, right? Because if Bayley wins it here, you think she would take it all the way there, right? And Becky and Bayley is not the plan. It's probably Becky and Ronda, right? So, right. And then we'll talk about Ronda and Liv, one would think here, but I don't. Yeah, it makes sense to go with Bayley and kind of change things up, but I don't know. That's why it's 50-50. It depends on what they want to do. And if you want to go status quo and kind of do this over again for the next pay-per-view and then have Bayley take it, then I could see that happening too. But I'd rather just do it and move on to the next thing as opposed to dragging this out any longer, because it's fine right now, but it could be a not fine situation in 6 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Brian, to answer your question, maybe we can. Wade's a busy guy, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, probably not on Thursdays. He's doing the He's doing he's a show
the marathon fix. Yeah.
Yeah. The 4.5 hour version. So
yeah. As far as, let's just talk about Ronda and Liv Morgan. You kind of alluded to it. I haven't liked this much either. Like I think it's Liv Morgan's championship reign is really kind of hanging on by a thread, and it's and there's a lot of blame to go around for why that is. Like, I think the booking did her no favors from the very minute she won the title. I don't think she's done particularly well with the material that she's had either to like come across as a strong competitive babyface. And so, man, this thing's hanging on by a thread. I think, it's Extreme Rules match, so I think the match itself will be fine. But this has Ronda Rousey written all over it, and I don't know what the betting odds are, but my guess is it's heavily favored towards Ronda, and that's where I'm going. I think it's time to pull the plug on this Liv thing, and build it back up if you want to, but also maybe to reposition her on the card where, okay, she's close to the top act, but not in the top tier, which is what she's trying to masquerade herself as right now.
Do you want the odds for this match? So Ronda's at -260. So for everyone out there that is not in the gambling, if you put $260 on Ronda, she win $100. So and then Liv is a +180. So if you put $100, you get 180 back on top of your 100. So that quick math is like 72% Ronda. If someone knows gambling math faster than me, you can do the math there. But
I think
she's the favorite, but not 99 to 1%. Not like Hangman Page taking on Kenny Omega, who was like a -1500 favorite when that happened. So,
who are you taking?
I think this is a similar situation to the previous match, right? Like, if Liv does win, because she's defended once against Ronda already, or is this the first defense?
She's defended once against Ronda.
Yeah, she beat her at Money in the Bank, and then at
SummerSlam they had a rematch.
So you could depends like what the situation is, right? Like, is Ronda such a big star she doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia? If that's the case, I assume they'll have the one women's match like they typically do in Saudi Arabia. Will, yeah. So like, if that's the case, like Liv, like, hey, that's your last title defense is at Saudi Arabia. And then, you could have Ronda lose here and then win it back at another show or a main event of a SmackDown or something. And then you could have her ride that thing until WrestleMania. So you can do it now. It's just basically, do you do it now or do you do it in a couple of weeks is kind of where I am on this. And same thing, just give it to Ronda if that's what you're going to do. Make her a heel and let's just do it and tell that story. Make her such a heel that when Becky beats her at WrestleMania, I would presume that it's a achieving moment. It's the main event of night one, and it's a culminating moment for her as a star. So let's go.
I totally agree, and the reason I would do it now is so that you just don't have some shenanigan fake Liv Morgan win again, because I don't think Ronda's doing a clean job if that's what she's asked to do. So, I mean, man, a second time, I mean, you're just throwing gasoline on that fire if you do that for a second time. But you're right, though. Maybe they want to save the title change for Saudi Arabia or some other blood money event. I don't know. Okay, so I think those are the three big matches. I mean, I know there's Drew McIntyre and Karrion Kross strap match. I think the question of how you book yourself out of this, I think is more interesting maybe than even the match itself. Like, just to see what they do. I mean, Drew losing that's two big losses in a row, but Karrion Kross losing, I mean, it's like then you're kind of setting him back too. And so it's an intriguing situation, and so maybe they just decide to not have to deal with it and have some sort of weird finish, but it's a strap match. So there's not many levers you can pull to get out of this one. I'll let you go first, Tyler. Who do you think is going to win, and what have you thought of this so far?
Yeah, I think all things considered, I think it's been a solid build to a inevitable match. So, that is like not veiled criticism. That is just like it was obvious where they were going here, and they're at this time. I can only think of poor Cody, who's probably upset that he's not doing the first strap match on WWE TV in a long time. So, or maybe
Poor Cody.
maybe it's his idea, or maybe that's a little jab at him by Triple H to give his match away. So
because of the whole sledgehammer thing. I mean,
yeah.
Triple H never holds a grudge. So.
No, definitely not. So yeah, I think it's been fine. I think Cross will win, and I don't think that Drew is necessarily Teflon at this point, but I do think he is. Well, if there's one belt for the next 10 years, is Drew the world champion again? I don't know. If there's two belts at some point, then I think Drew is a champion again at some point, but that's kind of where I would slot him. He's in that Bobby Lashley role. He's in that Sheamus role. He's in that Seth. I mean, I think if there's one belt, I think Seth could be champion at some point again. So I'd say he's slightly higher than McIntyre even at that point. But yeah, he's in that upper tier. I think Seth. I think KO. I think Cody. I don't need to run down the list here, but I just think he's just a slight tier above. He's in the tier 2, and him putting guys like Cross over here to give them a chance to become stars is kind of what his role is going to be for a period of time. And he's going to beat, if Randy Orton comes back, he's probably going to beat a Drew McIntyre, right? Because he needs to get heated up again. That's just kind of where Drew is right now. And you can build up Drew. And, everyone on here thought he should have beaten Roman Reigns, right? And I think you and I didn't. But there's a way to have him be in cold periods and heat him back up to, and that is kind of the modern day era of a good hand, right? If you can always build him up, that you don't really need to support him long term. You can have him lose in the intermediate, kind of like an old fashioned Undertaker who's trying to put over the Heidenreichs of the world and losing to them on occasion and not really ever being champion.
Unbelievable.
But that's not saying Drew's the Undertaker, but I think he's kind of in that mold right now to get the newer Triple H guys over. If Andrade came back, if Malachi came back, I think they come and immediately beat like a Drew McIntyre to reestablish themselves.
Yeah, man, I think you're right. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think it's a tough match to book if you think of it from a lot of angles, but also if you think it from the angle that you're thinking of it which is just, hey, it's time for Karrion Kross, regardless of how you feel about him, to at least see if he's capable of taking that next step. Like, he's got to win here, without question. So I think you're right. I think Karrion Kross is going to win this one. Again, I think it'll be interesting to see, but yeah,
probably some Scarlet witchcraft of some
sort.
Yeah,
right. Sure. Oh, sure.
It's spooky. It's spooky season, so we'll get.
Yeah, right. It's Halloween time almost. Yeah, and so and then it's interesting for Karrion Kross too, because I think he's got to show something in this match. I mean, it's a strap match, so he doesn't have to have like a Mac classic. I think this is a good situation for him to walk into on his first pay-per-view back, and so I think he's got to get at least a double here. Like this can't be a stinker of a match. Otherwise, because I think there's already a lot of people who feel like Sean does, which is, all right, Kross got to win this. I'm just not a fan. How is this match going to go? And I think that's, again, I'm wondering that too from a booking perspective, and also whether or not Kross can show some added range and show a little bit more development and that he's a guy that maybe you could put in the ring with Roman Reigns at some point, perhaps, if Reigns turns babyface or maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, to me, this is Kross winning, mainly just because of out of necessity for his push. Because if he loses, it's kind of all over after that.
Yeah, I would say definitely yell a lot in the middle in the match if you're Karrion Kross. Like a lot of that'll really, I think, nail that this will be a good match. So he should be fine.
I mean, what's the over under on Kross yells outside of the entrance, not factoring in? I'll count them during the match.
It's all about how long the match is. This is probably the strap match. It's probably a little shorter than one would think a normal match would be like this. So I'll say it's like 12 minutes. So yeah, I'd say like 9.5 audible, like eye bulging screams of some sort.
No, wait, 9.5?
Yeah, that's what I'd put the line at.
All right.
So
All right.
So you
I'm taking under. I'm taking the under.
Okay.
That 9.5 is a lot. No entrance though.
Yeah, that's fine. He's gonna get. He could have 7 getting whipped by the strap. You know, that's 3 right there. So
that's true. That's true.
It's like the Dragons at the Cardiff show. You lost that bet in like
oh man,
in like 30 seconds.
Seconds in, I did.
Yeah,
I'm still taking the under. The under.
I hope you're right.
We also have just quickly on Edge and Finn Balor, an I Quit match, kind of putting a bow on the Edge versus the Judgment Day feud. Man, I would like to see WWE put some heat on the Judgment Day and give them this win, because if they're going to be a staple of Raw, and they've been in a lot of segments, multiple weeks now. You got to give them something to like hang their hat on, as far as like something real. And so that's why I'd try to, like, come find the guts to do that. But I don't think there's any way that Edge is saying I quit, unless like they do kind of an angle with his family, maybe at ringside or something like that. Outside of that, I don't see Edge saying those words. And so it's a little bit hard to predict Finn Balor here with a straight face, even though I think that's the way it goes, or it should go.
Yeah, I think everything you said is dead on. Like, physically, as a babyface in WWE, they very rarely quit from physical pain, right? That's not how they are constructed as babyfaces. Mm-hmm. They are heroes. They do not quit in the face of adversity. But as Edge alluded to in his video promo this week, like, it's not physical pain, it's something else. It's like basically referred to what you just said. Like, if Beth is there at ringside and they're going to do something to her, mm-hmm. or if Beth is not there, is it Ray? Because he's been intertwined with Ray and Dominic could be like gonna like behead Ray in some capacity or something like that. And does he quit for his friend Rey Mysterio, who they go back 20 years and all that stuff? So I think that's the way it's going to go. I think you're dead on that. They need a win as a group, because Finn Balor is more of a Triple H guy than a Vince guy, but as the leader of this group, he's felt more important than he has in the last like 8 years. Yeah. To maintain that and have him be a guy who can main event Raws for you, who can be an important figure week in and week out and not be the world champion or anything like that. But it makes sense for him to win here, and Edge doesn't lose anything. He becomes more of a babyface for quitting to defend his friend, and then someone else can come in and they can all get the heat back at the very end and all that stuff. So that's the way I see it, as opposed to Edge just going over here. But it depends what the story with Edge is, right? If he's going to retire in 6 months, 8 months, then maybe he goes on some crazy run. And, do you want to see him go against Roman again? I don't, but, it depends what story you're trying to tell. But in a vacuum, I think you got to have Finn win here.
Yeah, I agree. And then the only other match is the what is it? Is it Donnybrook Brawl? Let me make sure I got this right. It is called the good old fashioned Donnybrook match. Brawling Brutes versus Imperium. There's not much to discuss here. I think it's going to be a hard hitting match. It'll probably be pretty good, but that's about it. And I think whoever's winning isn't winning tomorrow night on SmackDown. So, like, if Sheamus is going to win the IC title, I think Imperium gets the win. If Gunther retains the title tomorrow, then I'm going with Brawling Brutes on Saturday. So, but a nothing match. It's fine.
Yeah, but it should be good. I mean, I think the single stuff has been better. But yeah, it's just a match to put on. Donnybrook is a free for all or a brawl, per Merriam-Webster. So there you go.
There we go. There we go.
It's a brawl match, basically.
Yes, or like a Texas tornado match or whatever they call it down there. Yeah, should be a good one. I mean, I like what they've done with Sheamus. I think, and he should have a hell of a match with Gunther tomorrow night on SmackDown. I'll be on the post show tomorrow, actually. So
cool.
Hopefully you guys will join me there.
Now watching the 2-hour Rampage / Battle of the Belts 4.
Man,
what the hell?
Tomorrow, man, is a head. I'm gonna need like 3 screens tomorrow because we got SmackDown and then we have the Rampage Battle of the Belt stuff, and then there's Impact Bound for Glory, I believe, is tomorrow as well. And then Saturday, of course, is Extreme Rules, but it's also Jon Moxley against Nick Gage. Is
under the lights on the pier?
Is it really?
Yeah.
It's out east.
Yeah, it's in Atlantic City. So they're like that spot during the pandemic where they were at the end of the Showboat Pier. They are under the lights. So I mean, it's gonna be like 40 degrees probably. So should be a hell of a scene.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching it. But yeah, it's a busy wrestling weekend. And last topic here, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
Bray Wyatt. We've seen the White Rabbit come and go. There's QR codes up the wazoo. I'm thinking that I thought they should have delivered on this a while ago because of the way they hyped it. But it'd make for a big moment on pay-per-view. So, or on Peacock View. I think we see him at Extreme Rules. What say you?
I'm gonna go with no, just because this just feels like it's gonna go on forever, and that's kind of part of the gimmick. It should have happened already. It should have happened in Edmonton. If it didn't happen there, then it's gonna be too long. What match does he come out for? Does he attack Riddle after he wins? Is he gonna or does he attack? What else? I just closed the thing. What's the other? He's not. I mean,
he could be involved in even the women's ladder match with Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, that's true. Or it's Cross and McIntyre would make the most sense, honestly. So that's probably how I'd rank it. Probably that, the women's match, and then Riddle and Rollins are the 3 matches. But
yeah, I
don't know. Like, what's the goal, right? Because then you've got the Blood Money show, and then you've got Survivor Series where you have the War Games match. So does that character fit into anything in those things? Do you want immediately him to be going against Tyson Fury or something random like that in a show? Do you want him? I guess you have to have matches around it, right? So if he's feuding with Drew at Survivor Series, that feels pretty big time. So yeah, I mean, I would say he should. At this point, I'll believe it when I see it for a full reveal, because it's got to be good. And I don't know. I don't know if this is the right environment to do it, where he comes out, with this creepy rabbit face thing that he's going to have. One would presume. So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I guess I've just lost my collective interest on it. When he appears, I'll be more open to it to see what the character is. But right. I'm just assuming a QR code will be in place of a reveal.
All right. Well, there you have it. Guys, we'll finish there. We got a busy week. We'll be live previewing SmackDown tomorrow night right here. So you can join us then. Saturday night for Extreme Rules watch along. So get those second screens ready. Bring a beverage or two, and we'll watch SmackDown and hang out and watch a little wrestling and debate all the madness of Extreme Rules. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. Zach and Steven and Giraldi and Sean and Azan, and let's see who else. It's Dr. Ross and let's see here. Tracy, great to see you. Thanks for joining. Brian, thanks for joining. And to everybody else, very much appreciate it. Appreciate the support. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. We got new stuff coming up every single day here on PWTorch YouTube channel, and so you can subscribe so that you can consume all of it. That's exclusive to YouTube. So there you have it, folks. Tyler, been a pleasure, my friend, as always.
Yep. Thank you. It's been great. Big weekend. Sorry I can't join you on Saturday.
Well, you're gonna join us with the Stone Cold theme, so we're all looking forward to that.
That's true.
Yeah.
We can do Blood Money and Survivor Series and all that stuff. So
yeah, right, exactly. All right, cool, guys. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you. Have a good time in Nashville, and we'll see you guys all tomorrow for our SmackDown preview. Until next time.